Guys, we're back again. We are back, and are we back? Because orphan season, which really doesn't start off until probably May or June to get really busy, and here we are right at the beginning of April, and it is manic. You'll hear more of that later on. But, you know, I've lost most of my hair now, and Lawrie hasn't had his cut for 16 weeks. Oh, I promised not to be nasty to Lawrie this week. Oh.
Apparently we've had too many reports of Lawrie bullying.
Yeah, I get report. What you guys don't understand is Lawrie bullies me so much more when we're not on air. But there, I've got lots of bits of paper all over the place today because it has been busy. We've got so much going on, and we've also got lots of stuff going on with 20 Acres. We've got lots of stuff going on with IDOT, of which you'll hear more very shortly. So what are we going to start off with, Lawrie? We've got to start off with, I guess, orphan season, because I mentioned it.
Yeah, so it's started with a bang. So orphan season is definitely our busiest time of the year. If you guys haven't followed us before, if you're new to here, first off, hello. And secondly, our orphan season is the time from about now till roughly sort of August, September-y time, which is our busiest months of the year by a long, long way. And we really have hit the ground running. It has been incredibly busy here over the last couple of weeks. Just to roughly put it into perspective, usually we see our first orphan around about sort of the 4th of March, something like this. We were seeing the first orphans well ahead of that in February and beyond. And we are, as are many other wildlife rescue centres in the UK, we're seeing an incredibly high number of patients and a couple of things which we'll get to in a minute that we weren't expecting until June, July time. So it has been very, very strange. So would you like to start us off, Simon, with some of the patients we've had in over the past couple of weeks?
So we have had, I will start with, so many. I mean, normally by now we've got maybe 1, 2, maybe 3 fox cubs if we're very lucky. I think Lawrie last count was something like 37, yeah, which 37. Actually meant, that's more dangerous for us because actually normally fox cubs filter in a few at a time. They go through the stages from a very warm pen to a medium to cold outside, and we can cope with a massive intake. The trouble is this time they've all come in at once, so we are absolutely full up. I think most centres, when I've spoken to other centres this week trying to get some foxes out to other places, everybody is absolutely brimming full of fox cubs, which means, you know, although we can take more later on, we've got to get these from where they are now to an outside pen or a cooler pen, and we just don't have the space, so we're having to improvise like crazy. It is incredibly busy. By now, in fact not by now, really by middle of May we might have our first badger cub in. We've got 5. 2 of them actually over the last 48 hours have been very poorly. They were doing fine, they were putting on weight. I've got sheets in front of me to tell me what they're doing all the time, and then suddenly yesterday lunchtime 2 of them went zooming downhill at great speed. I mean, really seriously. We were all very worried. Mary's been working flat out today to get them back up, so they've been having subcut fluids, they're on an IV. We're just very worried. We've noticed a lungworm in one of them, so we've now got to worm them all again. So yeah, it's flat out, guys. It really is flat out, and I don't even do all the night feeding. I mean, poor Alana, who's Laurie's partner, I don't think she's slept for the last 5 weeks. I mean, she's had fox cubs and then they're fed 2 hourly during the night when they're very small and 2 hours through the day. So what with Alana feeding the fox cubs and Stanny, my girlfriend, feeding the badger cubs, there's no peace, and I don't get my dinner, which really, really upsets me when I don't get my dinner. I only eat one meal. You never eat
anyway.
I eat 1 meal a day and I look forward to it, and all I get now is either badger milk or chopped up chick.
You exist on air, Bacardi and bullying, and that's about it.
Bacardi does keep me going, I must admit. That works quite well for me. So yeah, and we've had another couple of winged patients in, just to give you the intro.
Several. Yes, several winged patients. So the first one we'll start off with something else that we wouldn't expect at this time of year. There would be very imminent, but we have a whole load of these guys. Now these are Mallard Ducklings. So we got the first one, we thought, oh, bit of an anomaly, and then the second one came in, and then the third, and the fourth, and the fifth, and at the moment we have over 20. Which is ridiculous for this time of year. They're all currently, we have a whole load of custom orphan units. The ducklings are in one of those at the moment. Never thought we'd have this many in at this particular time, but they are coming in thick and fast. We actually had a call today about 7 ducklings on a rooftop that have actually had to come in here. Unfortunately, they've been abandoned by mum. But recently, even last night, 3 came in. Unfortunately, one of those was dead on admission. But the other 2 had been abandoned. They're doing well at the moment. A whole lot of calls about mallards nesting in some very stupid places, as anyone who's seen half the videos on the YouTube channel will know. A lot of calls about that. So I certainly think on our side of things, we're going to get a lot of rescues of that.
The mallards that came in this afternoon were actually from the same place that Lawrie and I went out to last year. Exactly the same block of flats on the side of the River Thames in Kingston. And the mum had laid in one of the planters on the tiny little balcony, and sadly she diverted him. She hadn't been there for 6 hours and they were beginning to look really weak, so we had no choice but to bring them in. We were trying to wait till mum came back so we'd get mum and ducklings and then release them all together. That's what we preferred to do, but sadly mum didn't come and she hadn't been there for at least 6 hours, and these little things were obviously getting distressed. So we had to whiz a volunteer out there, and to all our volunteers, again, I must say, you know, you're all amazing. I mean, we've got 5 or 6 absolutely stalwart, for want of a better word, volunteers who go out and do all the big rescues. They've been pretty much non-stop, and it's only the beginning of April, which really scares me, because Mike Berwick, one of our rescuers, is very old now. He's not going to stand the pace of this orphan season, Lawrie. He's not going to stand up to it. That's why I stopped doing rescues, because I was way past it. But yeah, it's been incredibly busy. So to all our volunteers, they're always amazing. They do so much, not only the volunteers who feed here, but the ones who go out on rescues, and the one who deal with the calls, and the one who deals by tantrums, which is a pretty amazing thing to do. Yeah, it's going to be a very busy year, guys. We thought, in fact, last year was our busiest year ever. I have a very strong suspicion that this year is going to be even busier than last year, just by the numbers we've got in already. And our big problem here is when we get so many patients in, things like the foxes and the badger cubs, we need release sites. And people, I don't know, for some reason, don't volunteer. We keep putting messages out to people, you know, have you got a suitable place for a release site for some of our animals, because we don't release in the same place ever twice in 2 years. We only release a few at every single place we release. So for instance, our fox cubs, we never release more than 5 at a time, and we won't release there again for a couple of years. So you can imagine we go through loads of release sites, and they all have to be built and constructed and made ready for them. So yeah, it's going to be one of those years. It is going to be one of those years.
It certainly is. And it's not just ducklings that we've seen as well. One of the species that we do see a lot of every year, but certainly not at this time of year, are these guys. Now this is a young tawny owl, surprisingly well developed for this time. Usually we don't see these guys for a couple of weeks, if not a couple of months, coming down, but actually we already have 2 of them, and one of them is already starting to grow adult flight feathers, which is absolutely insane for this time of year, and it's only going to get worse. We have probably 20 owls by the end of the season that are growing up. If those of you who've watched our webcams may have seen those in the past in one of our aviaries, but this is the start of what I do think is going to be an incredibly busy orphan season. And it's not
we've
just
got nestlings in as well. We've got garden birds already, haven't we?
Yeah, so interestingly, I wonder, can anyone in the chat work out what this particular bird is? So this was our first youngster, a young sort of hatchling of the year. One of the most common species we see here, and as a little clue for you, there's an American version and an English version.
I think,
and the American version has blue eggs.
Lawrie, the answer really is, I mean, looking at it, it's got the same haircut as you. It's got to be a Lawrie bird.
It's a relative. It is. It's a long lost relative.
They're very cute.
A few people have guessed in. Lily's guessed blue tit. Very, very close, but not quite on that one. Jeffrey got it in 1. That is a robin. That is the Eurasian Robin, I believe, is the proper name for it. The most common robin that we get over here in the UK. We get a whole load of those little guys in. That's the first off. And we also have these guys. Now, I absolutely love this. This is a young magpie.
Lawrie, if you say to me that looks like my haircut,
it looks exactly like Simon,
you're in trouble. I knew that was coming.
It looks like you in general. It's got the same grumpy face as well.
Just remember, people, when you think I'm horrible to Lawrie, it is actually the other way round.
Interesting enough, there was a comment in the chat actually that is, Simon, why don't you like Lawrie?
I could not. I've got to phrase this very carefully because it could get me
There
in
are
prison.
many reasons.
I could not live without Lawrie, and I wish I hadn't
That's a
said
lie.
that. But sadly, he is my right-hand man in so many ways. And yeah, we do get on. Believe it or not, we do get on. We had the odd cross. It's in a creative area. It's in a wildlife area. We do get quite angry with each other sometimes. We get the odd row, I suppose. We have little rows, don't we, Lawrie? Because Lawrie just walks off and hides in the loo for an hour.
I
and
don't
shout
speak
at
to you
him
for
too
2
much.
weeks at a time.
No, it's terrible. It's quite peaceful. No, I mean, we do get on incredibly well, and he has really he's become me, which probably scares him more than it scares me, actually, to be honest. But some of the more difficult rescues now, sadly, my body just won't do it. My brain does it, and my body goes, "You have got to be joking. Send Lawrie." And he does, and off he goes, and he does them all so well, and he does things which, I really took me a long time to learn how to do them properly, and he's picked it up in a very short period of time. So he not only does what he's supposed to do, which is all the media work for us, which is pretty phenomenal and full on, but now he does half the rescues as well. So whether he's expendable or expandable, I'm not quite sure, but going forward, he will still be here long after I'm pushing up the daisies.
Many people actually on some of the recent videos have called me Mr. Expendable. That appears to be my nickname now on the channel.
Either expendable or
I'm going to put
expandable,
that
will
on
work.
as my lower thirds on the next video. Hello, just Mr. Expendable. See how many
Okay.
people get it.
We'll see. We'll see. So
Sammy's
we've had money
just
coming.
asked-
Lawrie, I've got to stop you now because I know
Yeah.
we talk about money. We haven't talked about money very much this week, and I've seen money flooding in over the first few minutes,
Yes.
which has been pretty amazing.
Yeah, so thank you so much to every single one of you that has donated on YouTube, on Facebook, via our website. All of you, we are incredibly grateful. We say this every week, we're not funded governmentally at all. We can only do what we do thanks to the generosity of people like you guys. And you keep us running. You keep us able to do what we do. So huge thanks to all of you. So Anthony's donated £4.99 for my future haircut. So thank you very much.
Oh, this
Anthony.
is funny. That's really weird because I was just about the next comment I was going to get in when you let me get a word in edgeways. I was going to say, but nobody donates for Laurie's haircut.
Anthony
So
already has beaten you to it.
he's been there. He's been there and in there. So we look forward to that. We look forward to seeing his haircut before the next YouTube. That would be really cool.
I'll just go completely bald, so I've surprised the heck out of you doing that.
Like me then.
Paul has donated $9.99, so thank you very much to you, Paula. Michelle, another $9.99, thank you very much. Sodor Flubs donated £4.99, but I'm sorry this is all I can afford. I hope this helps. Makes the world
Everything
of difference.
helps.
Every
Everything
penny
helps.
makes a difference, so thank you so much for your generosity. Mikhail has donated 119, I believe that's Swedish krona as well, so thank you very much for that. That's very, very kind. And for any of you who are donating, we might not have got to you, you have via the website, we don't see that immediately. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Lots of thank yous. Lots of thank yous for me coming in here now.
So Sammy has just asked, considering what we were speaking about earlier, what do we look for in a release site?
It depends. It really depends on so many circumstances. It could be a whole YouTube hour really, because it depending what it is. Ideally we don't want anything to go too near major roads if it's a mammal. But there again, anywhere around here there's major roads everywhere, but ideally we want to keep them with lots of space between them and the road. It needs to be the right habitat. Therefore they need to have the right food stuff, so we need to make sure that everything's conducive to that. We want to make sure that not too many people go there, so they're left on their own a bit, and they've got their own ability to go wild without getting loads of people sticking their nose in. And yeah, there's a lot of things, and depending upon what type of animal, what age the animal is, you try to look at the same things. Any animals we get in that are adult, we try to get back out to where they were found within reason. I mean, a few years ago we had a fox cub on Esher High Street. Well, there's no way we're going to put it back on Esher High Street. But where we can, we put the adults back where they were found, because they know that territory. We had that for fox a while ago, didn't we, Lawrie? That you managed to eke out of a compactor, and I got the glory because I managed the rescue. But Lawrie actually did all the work.
I'm still annoyed at that. I'm still
annoyed now. He did all the work. He had to go under a really tiny gap and crawl right into the end, and he flushed it out towards me. So we both had to do our work. He's very quick, Lawrie. He's actually found that quickly. One day I'll catch him out. So he flushed it out to me. I caught it, and yes, we did release it back in the same town, but obviously not right there. We tried to give it so it was not more than half a mile away from where it knew, and it could go back and continue its existence, because that's where it used to live, that's where it knew where it's going to find food. If you take an urban fox like that and put it out in a rural area, it would be completely stymied. It would have no idea what to do, and so many times this has been proven on tests that people have done. So they have to go back if they can, within reason. But we try to give them the best chance we do. All we can do is give them a second chance. It doesn't always work, but you know, we actually went out to, sadly, we had a badger brought in about a week ago now, and we found it was chipped. It wasn't one of our chips, but we found out who chipped it, and we went back and we chatted with them. And this fox was released 9 years. Fox, I'm changing my animals as I go.
Black
this
and white
badger,
stripy thing.
The black and white stripy thing was released 9 years ago. So here's an animal that's gone out to the wild. It's gone back out. It's had its second chance, and it's lasted for 9 years. Now you think most wild animals, I mean foxes for instance in this country, especially urban foxes, their expected lifespan, believe it or not, is 18 months, which is just horrific, absolutely terrifying. They're hardly sexually mature at 18 months. It's just scary. So you know, they have a hard enough life without mankind interfering. But you know, this one had lived 9 years, so it came into us. Sadly, it was very, very weak. It was near the end of its life. Its teeth were worn down, and we can give it a very dignified and quick death because it would never have survived if it had gone out to the wild. But there's an animal release, second chance, 9 years. That's pretty damned amazing to us guys. So you know, we do our best. We do our best all the time.
Speaking of doing the best, we've seen a whole load of rescues over the past couple of weeks as well. Several of you have seen a couple of them up on the channel. Certainly the fox cub that we did down in the stream, that was only done 2 days ago. So that one's out very, very soon. I'm not entirely sure what Simon's looking at. He's looking.
I'm looking at cherry lattice. There's a cherry lattice come up on the chat, and I just love cherry lattice. Lawrie will tell you.
That's all you eat.
And Laurie's mum will tell you that if you say cherry lattice to her, she absolutely has a screaming fit and runs out of the centre. That's life.
I am not even going to slightly get into that at all. But a whole load of rescues that have happened. Several of you have seen the videos on the channel, so we'll just start with a couple of those first. The first, of course, was this guy. So this is the swan with the suspected shooting injury to the head. We didn't find a pellet in there, but investigations are still ongoing on there from witness reports. That guy is currently over with the Swamp Sanctuary, which is another wonderful rescue up in Shepperton, sort of a bit closer to London than we are. Doing really, really well. Doing well as well with our bite wound swan in exactly the same pen. And there is another swan that some of you who follow us on our other social media, sort of Facebook, Instagram, will have seen. Those of you on YouTube won't quite have seen this story yet. But unfortunately, this is a swan that was shot in the eye with a catapult ball bearing. So that is a story that is coming. All 3 of those swans are in the same pen up at the Swan Sanctuary. I believe 2 of them are due for release next week, which is fantastic news. And the bite wound swan needs a bit more time just to get up the full strength back in the neck. And that one should be going shortly afterwards. So as soon as we hear more about those, we will bring you those releases as well. And we are very much looking forward to it.
We're very much looking forward to Lawrie showing a rescue that doesn't involve it starring Lawrie, really. I mean, all the rescues now, it's starring Lawrie. I mean, I get 1 in 10 if I'm lucky, and he gives me the really easy ones. Ones which he thinks, well, Simon shouldn't die if he does this. He shouldn't fall over. He shouldn't miss it. So he picks my rescues now. I get the ones which are so easy.
This is not
I don't know
true.
what to do with myself. It's true. It is true.
Anthony has just said, is that the video where Lawrie got rather angry? Yes. And I really, really didn't want to put that in it.
But Lawrie
it's
did
not
get
my best moment, but I did get very frustrated about that.
On the rescue you saw there, actually, Lawrie was walking down this lake or this pond to try to catch his swan, and he was up to about his knees, so that was all right. That's fair enough. He took 1 more step, and he went from knee height to nipple height. In 1 step,
yeah.
and it
if
was
you listen
slimy,
to the microphone before I drowned it, all you hear is
It was horrible, and he did stink when he came back. I wasn't going to let him come back in the car. He reeked because it was a really, you know, the silt and all the stuff at the bottom of the pond was disgusting. But Lawrie is actually he's better than me in a way because he will not give up. I will probably step back and think I'll do it later on or I'll do it another way because I don't want to get it going out. Lawrie just once he's gung ho for it. God help any patient that he doesn't get. He's out there flat out and trying to run through water when you're nipple height in water and silt and all the other stuff is pretty phenomenal. But we got the swan. He came on the boat. I actually managed to keep all dry until Lawrie got back in the boat and the whole boat was swimming in silty water. So we all got dirty in the end, but a great rescue by him. I will give him that. And I will never give him another one this year. That's going to be the only one you get praise on, Lawrie.
Yeah, but a few of you are asking why I was so frustrated on that one, and I will 100% say it was 100% an overreaction considering what it was. But it's when we're out in that situation, especially when we had probably 30-40 people watching to seeing exactly what we were doing, and with a lot of these animals, especially an animal that can fly, you don't necessarily know if it can take off. You might only get one chance, and mucking up that one chance through my own personal failure or equipment failure or anything on that is incredibly frustrating because you end up in a situation where the animal that you've come to help might not get the help that it needs because of your actions, and at that point that gets really frustrating. And I did let that one bubble out a little too much in that one, but it does get very frustrating when you do think that your one chance might have been blown.
What Lawrie is not saying there, ladies and gentlemen, audience worldwide that you are, is that it was a swan hook that we had, and I used it about a week before, 2 weeks before probably, and the swan got its head out the swan hook, and I thought that's really weird. That never happens because once you've got them in the swan hook, they really can't escape unless something's wrong, and this swan hook was just so big it managed to slide through it. I will admit that I didn't go absolutely berserk like Lawrie did when I missed it. I was just very upset that I didn't get it. We got it in the end. But Lawrie had the same swan hook, which we've now banished from use. We're never going to use it again. And it slipped out. So Lawrie didn't do it wrong. He did it absolutely right. But the head went back and out through the swan hook because it was too big. And we got it later on. We do get it in the end. But Lawrie was in a real paddy. He's like a 5-year-old child with a tantrum, Lawrie.
My mum watched that video and just turned to me and went, Lawrie.
Absolutely.
The sort of, I'm not angry, I'm just disappointed sort of voice.
Yeah. I'm still disappointed, Lawrie, but I try not to say it too much on air because I know you get upset about it. No, so he didn't miss it. It was a swan hook that was at fault. You know, a bad workman always blames his tools, but in this case, we were both right to do that because I missed one, same reason. Lawrie missed that one, but we get them in the end. We do get them in the end, don't we?
Well, we do. We certainly we don't give up. We have real stubbornness issues.
Well, I give up and Lawrie doesn't. Works for me.
Other rescues that we've had recently actually doesn't involve either of us two. It involves someone over there who is going to get very embarrassed very shortly. This was a rescue that Abby and Sean, our other camera woman, went out to. So we received a report of a number of fox cubs that were out and about, sort of seemed abandoned, were crying, had been seen for 48 hours without any sign of parental activity. So Abby and Sean went out just to go and have a look. I believe they managed to get 2 of them very, very quickly, but the other 2 cubs sort of buried themselves in under a whole load of sort of materials in the garden, and it took quite a long time. I'm looking at Abby now, which is not going to give any answers. No,
she's going to come and smile. No, she's going to smile. She is going to come on camera for 2 seconds, just to say.
But Abby and Sean were there for 2 hours and very, very slowly coaching those cubs out. They did manage to get them out. They were brought back to the centre. We left a trail camera, which is something we'll get onto in a minute, out there just to monitor the site. Unfortunately, we haven't managed to find any sign of the parents there at all. The cubs are quite thin, very dehydrated. A couple of them have other issues as well that are being treated, so they couldn't go back anyway. But they now are doing really, really well with the group that we have up at the centre behind me. But huge thank you to Abby and Sean for that one. We do have a video, and you will be seeing Abby on a video. That is if she includes herself, because she's the one that's editing it.
We'll make sure she does.
We will see what happens on that one. And on that note as well, we do have to say, we unfortunately have had to say bye to Sean. Sean has left us to start another job working with a VFX company. So Sian was, you might not have seen her on camera too much, but she was one that was filming and editing a lot of our videos over the past couple of months. So thank you very much for everything that you've done, Sian, if you are watching this video, and we wish you the very, very best of luck with your future career. And we're going to get Abby on camera a lot more because she said she found it okay.
No, live.
And of course, Laurie, at the end of that, we are looking for another intern. If anybody wants to come and work with us for 6 months, not charge us any money because I'm really mean. It's a great learning experience for any cameraman or editor, to be honest, to come in here because it is so full on. You will learn a lot. I mean, Jim, our first ever cameraman, really, pretty much right from the beginning of the series, came to us straight out of university. He came as an intern and he stayed for, I think, something like 12 years. But he went from here because he picked up so much experience while he was here of filming and editing and even in the end producing, that he's now an award-winning cameraman director.
It's a Grierson Award.
It's the Grierson Award. I wish he'd given it to me because I think I deserved it more than him. But no, so I mean, it's a great learning ground because you're on your feet, you're plunged in the deep end pretty much immediately, and it's fun, to be honest. I mean, I always say to anybody who wants to come and work here, the job satisfaction is about 120%, even more, and the salary really sucks. But never mind, if you want to work with wildlife, sadly you're never going to earn a lot of money. I think that really moves us across quite nicely, Laurie, in a funny sort of way, to introducing tonight's special secret guest. Do you think it does that?
The secret guest that has been very obviously teased in several live streams, several posts, and everybody knows exactly who we're talking about.
And here he is now. His name is Douglas Anderson. He's come on board to help us with IDOT, which I'm going to say no more about because I'm going to let Douglas talk about most of it. But Douglas, Laurie, by his very cleverness, has swapped him for you. You have become the new Laurie. Douglas, welcome. Welcome to all our worldwide viewing audience. I'm just going to read a tiny bit from your CV here because it's so damned impressive. Hard-working, creative, motivated zoology graduate, and in the end a positive and passionate individual dedicated to the conservation of wildlife. We like people like that. In 5 seconds, Douglas, tell us all about yourself.
So I studied zoology at university with the hope of getting into conservation because, like most people here at WAF, don't really like people that much. We want to work with animals, but it turns out that if you want to work with animals, you've got to work with a lot of people as well.
Sadly.
So after studying zoology, I volunteered in the UK for a little while, worked here before moving to Southern Africa to work for a wildlife conservation charity in Namibia. Spent 4 years there and then returned to the UK at the beginning of COVID, and I've now ended up here at WAF to run the IDOT program as their engagement officer.
Doug, you flicked over that really quickly. 4 years in Namibia, you know, as if it's nothing. You must have had a great time out there, didn't you?
Yeah.
Tell us a bit more about that, because that's really exciting.
It's pretty amazing. The country is 3 times the size of the UK and has only a population of about 2.5 million, 3 million people, so it's just beautiful, wide open expanses with not a lot of people and a lot of wildlife and beautiful scenery. I spent the most of my time out there working as a research and volunteer coordinator at an organisation called the Nankuse Wildlife Foundation, and most of what that organisation did was try to mitigate the conflict that exists out there between humans and wildlife. So supporting farmers, supporting landowners who run into conflict situations with wildlife such as baboons, cheetahs, leopards. A lot of the wildlife can be kept in the wild, which is fantastic. With the support of the landowners and the farmers out there, we can work alongside to keep the wildlife in the wild, which is where we want it to be. But on the odd occasion where that's not an option or where the circumstances don't allow it, then we would often have to bring the animals into our sanctuary for some veterinary care, rehabilitation, and hopefully release back into the wild. Not all the animals can go back into the wild, so then that's the ones that would stay at the sanctuary. And like the cheetah you just saw in the photo there, that's a cheetah that was brought in as a young cub, and by the time it's old enough to be able to survive in the wild, unfortunately it's habituated too much to humans because we've had to feed it as it's growing up. And so we try and find other ways to find value in them while they're there. So one of the things that we would do here is, as they grow up and they habituate to our behaviour, we become very comfortable around them, they become very comfortable around us. and we can then use them for study subjects. So these cheetahs that you see in front of me here are about to be led across that nice damp looking patch of sand, and this is part of a program or study called FIT, Footprint Identification Technique. So we would lead the cheetahs across the damp sand, and then we would measure up and take photographs of their footprints. And once you add in some data points like on their photo there that you can see, marking the north, south, east, west of each of the toes, and then some of the key features in the main footpad there, they can be processed by a really interesting and smart piece of statistical analysis software which builds basically a fingerprint identification for the animal. So the same way that your thumbprint is covered in lots of lines and loops and squiggles, and which doesn't look that special to us, in that photograph of the cheetah's footprint there's enough unique information that the computer can tell what species it is, it can tell the age class of it, if it's a juvenile or an adult, it can even tell if it's male or female, and in some instances it can even tell a degree of relatedness between other individuals. So it's a highly useful and important tool for non-invasive population monitoring. We don't have to see the animals, we can find footprints in the wild, we can take photographs of the footprints, load it into the software, and it helps to tell us a lot about the population in the area. Now, of course, it's very difficult to do if you're only using wild populations, because you may not get good footprints, and you might not necessarily know which animal is leaving those footprints, if it's one cheetah at the start of the trail or another cheetah at the end. So having captive populations like the cheetahs we worked with there was really, really valuable to help build the software and to make it smarter and learn more. And then once you have that information, you can then extrapolate that and use it in wild populations. And it's a fantastic program that's being used all across the world on every continent, covering animals from polar bears and rhinos to wolves, dormouse in the UK, tigers. So a really, really interesting project to be involved in, and something that everybody can also join in. If you're able to come across footprints like these when you're on your travels, you can take photos, send it into the team at WildTrack, like a kind of citizen science program, and it all goes towards making that program smarter and better for future.
Blimey, that's a mouthful. That's why he went to university and I didn't. He knows so much more than I do. So you went to Namibia, you did the thing, you wandered around a bit, stroked some cheetahs, did what you need to do. Do you use those cheetahs at all for captive breeding? Do you ever use them for captive breeding as well, or not?
So, aside from the fact that it's illegal to breed large carnivores in captivity in Namibia, no, we didn't, because that's not something that we obviously want to aspire towards. Nobody has great degrees of satisfaction with zoos around the world, but they do exist for certain purposes. And captive breeding is a very similar dicey situation. If you breed an animal like a cheetah, which would be raised in captivity and then habituated to humans, it would never be released into the wild. So breeding them makes absolutely no sense, because you then can't get them back out. What we try to concentrate on is keeping animals in the wild and relying on the wild populations to populate and to grow and to grow, and then that way we don't have to rely on captive breeding programs when the numbers drop too low. So instead of bringing them in, we use that as a last resource. We would work with a lot of other people, local NGOs, local authorities and farmers unions and landholders, to try and support them so that they don't feel the need, they don't suffer the consequences of conflict, and they don't feel the need to then have that animal removed. A lot of the time that doesn't even solve a problem. Cheetahs, like many animals, leopards and hyenas, are territorial. If you take one out of its home range, it will simply leave an open house for another one to move into. So keeping it there is actually the best thing to do, and that would give us a lot of information to then support the farmers and to show them that we've got a lot of tools and a lot of expertise that we can help them with, rather than just show up and take an animal away.
This has become the Lawrie Anderson, the Douglas Anderson joke. Lawrie Anderson? I'm getting you both muddled up now. So, Douglas, from your accent, you have come from Scotland.
Yes.
Whereabouts in Scotland did you come
from the south, from Dumfries.
Dumfries. I've only been to Scotland about twice. I hate to admit it, it's too cold up there.
Too cold, but better scenery than we've got around here.
So, yeah, but you went, so starting in Scotland, very cold. Went all the way out to Namibia, and I went to Namibia too on Wildlife SOS, and lots of hot countries, beautiful. What incentivized you to come back to the UK?
Well, unfortunately, working for charities is not an easy thing to do. It's a very, very tough, busy, dedicated lifestyle, and there's not a lot of reward in it in terms of providing a living. I took advantage of it as much as I could while I was able to, having little commitments, so I didn't need to worry about having things like savings in the bank. But as my projects began to draw to a close, I started to look at moving on to other options, and then it was actually COVID that sort of sealed the deal. I came home to sort my passport and was trapped here. So that gave me some enthusiasm, inspiration to start looking for more jobs in the UK, and which led me to this position here.
Do you think your girlfriend would be pleased to hear you saying that you got trapped here? I mean, it just worries me that she's going to be slightly worried at that comment.
I would say that she's probably as happy to have me back as she is also sad that I can't provide her with a place to go and visit in Africa. So it's probably mixed emotions.
But before you came back, you did some work with some oryx, didn't you? Did you do some oryx work?
Yeah, so of the 4 species of oryx that we have in Africa, the one in southern Africa, the Gemsbok, is this one that you see in the picture here. Now these are desert specialists, and being a largely arid country with the oldest desert in the world, that picture on the right hand side is taken in the Namib Desert. This is the prime habitat for the oryx to live in, for the Gemsbok to live in. And because of the amount of farmlands across Namibia, about 40% of the whole country is devoted to some degree of livestock farming. There's a lot of farm fencing, and that causes a lot of problems for the oryx. So on a lot of occasions, animals like this would get stuck. You can see so much better on the photo on the right the length of the horns rather than the one on the left where I'm holding the horns. But the oryx are not a very smart animal. They would try and get through the fences. They would end up getting their horns tangled and stuck, and then if they didn't break their necks, they would probably end up dying of dehydration or being the food of something else that stumbles across it and takes advantage of a free meal. So we would often have to cut them out of fencing in order to set them free and give them another extra chance before the leopards and the hyenas were to get their teeth in them.
It's an interesting life, really. Quite an interesting life.
It is. No day is ever the same as the next, which is fantastic. And like I say, it's a day full of animals and wildlife rather than too many other humans.
Well, one comment has just come up while you've been talking, saying, so where was it? It's somewhere, it's gone up. So now Douglas is at WAF, he is trapped for life.
Yeah, I'm starting to get that impression.
That's not nice. Now who's being nasty to who? So what?
Just getting into the swing of things.
What lured you towards IDOT? What drew you into the idea of helping us with that?
So a lot of what we did in Namibia, aside from the research, was also running a volunteer program, and from time to time throughout the year we would also host a lot of student groups from countries from the US, Denmark or the UK. And these student groups would come out to learn a little bit about what we do in conservation, and often tie that back to studies they're doing back home with their school or college. And I found that the engagement side of this was really appealing to me, and over the years I got more and more passionate about the talks that I would give to people and the discussions that we would hold, and trying to get people to realise the bigger picture of conservation. It's not always just about saving one animal at a time. Sometimes there is far greater aspects to it, and the IDOT program kind of encompasses a lot of that. So the IDOT, meaning I do one thing, is a beautiful initiative that is hoping to see if we can create some sort of sustained cultural change within the population, so that just by taking one small action every day, we start to create a massive change in the culture and the population that helps to create a larger effect across a local community, across a country or across the world. So something quite so simple as saving a litre of water per day, per person. If we fill the kettle less, we take a shorter shower, stick a brick in the back of your toilet so when you flush the toilet it uses less water. Simple things like that can all save water. And if you think there's 68, 70 million people in the UK, that's 1 litre less a day. That's 68, 70 million litres of water saved. If you do that every day for a year, you're looking at around about 24 billion litres of water saved. So you then adapt that behaviour, that process, to countries that really suffer from droughts, and you have massive effects. Look at the waste that we produce as well. The fishing twine, rubber bands, any sort of plastic bottle or plastic packaging that doesn't break down in the sunlight. All it does is break down into smaller and smaller fragments, which then end up being ingested by animals and then poisoning them or killing them. And as we know, a lot of these pieces that become so small, they actually become ingested and then incorporated into the body in a toxic level. And when we have a society and a culture that is so reliant on eating meat, a lot of those toxins then end up back into humans. Fish is a big example of this that everybody knows about. So if we can really start to change little behaviours on a day-to-day basis, on a personal basis, then we can start to have a grander effect overall. There's a recent survey done by YouGov that was published in Sky News that showed that 23% of the UK population feel that they're not prepared to make any sort of key climate related habit change. So whether that's switching your energy providers or buying electrical vehicles or reducing their meat intake, they're just not into making any sort of grand change. But at the same time, 21% of the population feel that their actual actions have been impacted by climate change. And on a larger scale, they feel that around 50% of the UK feels that the UK is being impacted by climate change. So unless we all start to make small changes to the way that we live and the daily actions that we undertake, then we're not really going to see a grand change. So if this idea of having a small daily action that you would repeat, whether it is just the way you use water or use electricity, to doing more unique actions like feeding animals, removing fencing from football nets in the days that it's not being used, so that you don't get animals trapped in the netting, turning off appliances when you're not using them, turning off lights when you leave the room, you start to save a little bit of power, and that becomes a grander amount that is saved up over a population, and this all contributes towards reducing your carbon footprint.
It's quite hard, really, isn't it? When I dreamt up IDOT, which actually is a long time ago now, and you've really sort of championed it and you're going to take it forward, so I'm far too old to do that. It's trying to get the understanding into people that, you know, you get all these, you know, the David Attenboroughs of the world, the Greta Thunbergs of the world saying, you know, the world's a disaster, it's all coming to an end, it's all our fault. What, you know, we've got to do something about it, but they're not really leading people to tell them what to do. And I suppose the individuals sit and think, well, what is the point? You know, I'm one person. I can't do anything to make a difference. But if everybody does something every day, as you said earlier on, it's 24 billion actions a year. So it could be 24 billion litres of water. It could be 24 billion rubber bands picked up. It could be all these things. And the work we do here, all right, that's our IDOT. We get the animals back to the wild, which is fine. But, you know, we can only do so much, and it's no good putting them back out in the wild if they're going to go into an alien habitat, one that's got fishing net or wires or football stuff or whatever around. They've got to go back to a clean habitat. So really what we're doing, IDOT really is saying, you know, it's a holistic approach. We've all got to do our little bit to make the whole far more acceptable and sustainable for the future. So that's where I come onto it. This is why I have people much younger than me and much more good looking than me to spread the word out to the general public. Don't you raise your eyebrows at me, I saw that. Yeah, so Douglas has come on board. If anybody's got any questions for him, email him. He'll give you his email address in a minute when I finish waffling. But IDOT, we're really hoping it does pick up not only traction here in the UK, but traction throughout the world, because we all did. You think 24 billion actions here in the UK, you multiply that to the world population, and actually I'd once tried to work out the amount of noughts it actually took. It was trillions and trillions and trillions of them, and it would make a huge difference. So Douglas, if people want to contact you, who should they write to?
So you can email myself at idot@wildlifeaid.org.uk, and I will respond to that. You can also visit the website that you just saw on screen there, which is idot-waf.org.uk, and you can fill in the contact form there, and that will also filter through.
So if you've got any questions, if you want to ask anything about IDOT, if you want to spread it around your country, if you're not in the UK, please come on to us. We want to make IDOT work, and this is really, it's a bit altruistic of us to do this. You know, it's not going to make us any money, but I think it's important. You know, it's no good having a world that's going on and getting worse and worse and worse without us all doing our bit to make it better. So Wildlife Aid in its hospital gets our you know, 80,000 or 20,000 calls a year and gets those animals out. With the work that Douglas does, we can spread the word so much further. People can pick it up, take it to their country, and hopefully IDOT will become an international thing, and something to be proud of. It's some, you know, if we can save our planet, if we can do our little bit to save our planet, and don't think what you do is tiny. It's actually, when multiplied, it's enormous and so important to sustain everything through habitat, animals, whatever, through into the next generations. Shall I shut up now, Douglas? It's all yours.
No, you're doing a good job. I would just say that on that extra point, you said this is altruistic. We don't make any money out of this, and that's true. But at the same time, this could also save a lot of money for everybody at home. WAF takes donations in order to run, in order to look after its animals. Now, it doesn't cost anything to do some of these small actions, but if everybody started to behave a bit better and more friendly towards wildlife and towards the environment, then we would reduce the number of patients here at WAF. That would reduce the amount of money needed to run the centre, and that would keep your donations in your pockets. None of these actions cost anything to do. It's just about making small differences to the wildlife around you that actually has massive impacts.
And there was an adder that got stuck in, this is a corrugated roof, and it got stuck in a little hole, and we had to cut it out. Adder in the UK, I mean, we're a bit wimpish in the UK, not much really does us damage, but that adder got well and truly stuck. It's the only venomous snake we have. Is that the right word? Lawrie gets very cross with me when I use the wrong words.
Yes.
Venomous snake we have in the UK. So we got that one out and it was absolutely fine. We're getting so many nice comments. I think Lawrie and I have been doing this now for some considerable time, and we've never had such nice comments as Douglas is getting. I'm just reading through when I'm looking off screen at the moment, and one comment we've had from somebody is, but even if some changes, it's a start. Somebody said we can lead by example, and it is exactly that. Not only do you do it, but try to persuade your relations, your friends and everybody else to do it as well, because it can make a huge difference. IDOT is going to go forward. It's my dying wish that it really works. I hope it does, and Douglas is the person to take it on, because he's far younger than me. He's going to live far longer than I am, and little does he know that he is trapped in the world of wildlife aid. Douglas, you've obviously just come on board. It's very early for you, very early days for you and IDOT, and you're just getting you to grips with not only WAF as a centre, but what it believes and how it works. But you've got, I mean, you are the boss of IDOT. I can't say you're the only person who runs IDOT,
No.
but how do you see it going for the future? What would you like to see, and what do you hope to see?
So the first thing we're hoping to see is to get really big local uptake in the initiative, to really see the counter moving up. We've already got a lot of local schools participating, getting classes involved, driving the number up, and some community groups with the Girl Guides and across the country. We're also hoping to get on some other corporate partners and other NGOs involved that can then hopefully tie in their workforces a little bit. It's not about necessarily starting something new. A lot of it is asking people who are currently already doing these behaviours and these kind of cultures in their workplace and in their schools. They're already carrying out what we want them to do. What we're asking them to do is to just bring it all together into a central place through the IDOT website, and if they can add their IDOTs to the counter, it really shows the power of one when you multiply it through the population. So I'd like to see it really growing throughout the local community, but then from there it just needs to spread more and more. The more people that get involved, it doesn't matter what crunch you're in. That's the great thing about it. It spreads across cultures, across languages. All you have to do is sign up, register, and start adding your IDOTs to the website. And when you start to see that counter skyrocketing, then you can really get an idea of the power we have as a population when we all start to do things together, rather than everybody sitting at home thinking they're too small, that they can't possibly make a difference on their own. I'm just one person. Well, if you start to actually add your efforts to everybody else's, you really see the difference that it makes. So really want to get it expanded, really want to get the name out there. Our website is currently undergoing some upgrades and developments thanks to a lot of the guys here at WAF that have been working on it for some time, and there is also a phone app in the pipeline to arrive soon, which means it'll be at everybody's fingertips. You can have it on your phone. If you want to do an IDOT, you can take a photo, you can share it, you can post it on the counter, and it means that it's everywhere with you in your pocket. You don't need to rely on getting home and getting in front of a computer in order to take part.
So I actually had 5 questions Lawrie was talking in my ear as you were talking. And you answered all 5 questions without me even opening my mouth. So yeah, the website is there, guys. Do go onto it. You can put comments on there, you can ask questions on there as well. But the website is under development. Abby and Douglas are working together to make this website better, greater and more accurate for what we need it to do. But any input, give us your input, because if you have any specific thing that we might have missed, it's always good to get feedback and input of what you think you want from us. So we're going to make it really work. If Douglas doesn't make it work within the next 3.5 hours, he's going to get fired. But never mind, he's expendable, rather like Lawrie.
Yes.
No, I mean, he's got
expendable.
massive enthusiasm. He's been a conservationist at heart for many years. And I think IDOT is a thing that can pull us all together. As I said earlier on, anything we do has got to be holistic. You've got to not only look at the animals, you've got to look at the habitat, you've got to look at human problems, the problems we cause our wildlife. If you put it all together, we can make the most massive difference. So I'm really excited. I've been excited about it for years, and only now is it really getting out there in the general public. We've got so many comments which you need to read, Douglas, later on.
Yeah,
so we've got
sure.
so much great feedback from all of you out there, so thank you for that as well. Trouble is, you talking is to stop the money coming in, Douglas. That really worries me. Everybody's so enthused about what you're saying. The money's just dried up. It's all over, guys.
Give it back to
No.
Lawrie then.
No, give it back to Lawrie. No, Lawrie just makes everybody go to
I
sleep.
think should have a turn then.
I do that, I have to say.
Yeah, there he is. You can't see him on camera, but his voice is forever with us. His voice, I've got him in my ears constantly. Even when I'm asleep at night, I hear Lawrie speaking to me, and that's damn scary. Anything more to sort of sign off on IDOT? Because we're getting actually quite near the end of anyway, but anything more you'd like to say? I think we should have you on again quite soon, because I think, as you warm up, you'll be getting more going on, you'll be getting more ideas, and you'll be taking it forward at a great speed. So you've got the sign off on IDOT, Douglas. Go for it.
Thanks very much. Yeah, folks, just head over to the website, get yourselves registered, get the family signed up, speak to your managers, speak to your teachers, and the more people that join up to this, really, the bigger impact it will be. Like I say, it doesn't cost anything. All it is a little bit of altruistic behaviour to show that together we can all have a big change. No point waiting around for anybody else to do it. Get out and do it yourselves.
Absolutely. So, I mean, IDOT is our gift, if you like, for want of a better word, for everybody. IDOT costs us money to run. We not only have to pay the people who run it, we have to do lots of website changes. It costs us money. For corporates out there, to be honest, I can't understand, because I was in the corporate world for 23 years, I can't understand why corporates aren't going, I want a bit of this. Because if it does work, which we're sure it is going to, we've already got, as Douglas said, the scouts and the guides. In fact, the guides have actually got an IDOT badge now, which is very impressive. I'm really excited about that. But, if you want to come on board as a corporate and sponsor IDOT, even just for a few weeks or a year or whatever, it helps us to do more to it. It helps Douglas to spend more time working with it. And he's going to be out there at schools, he's going to be out there talking to community groups. If there's any talks abroad anywhere in nice countries, I will be going to do them personally. I won't let him go out there. He's stuck in England now forever. But honestly, serious, for corporates who want to get on board, we would love to get a real bottom line sponsor for IDOT. It would make so much difference to us, and it would take the strain of us trying to finance that as well as financing wildlife aid as well, because it all takes funds. We've been here for 40 years. We don't intend to give up very quickly, and I think IDOT's got a huge potential, guys. I really do. Douglas, really huge thanks for you for coming on board and being brave. I think if you'd known us better when you first signed that thing saying I'll come and do IDOT for you, I'm not sure he'd still be here now. I think he'd run off screaming to the hills or screaming back to Namibia. But you brought your dog with you, haven't you? You've got your beautiful dog who you found in Namibia, didn't you?
I did. It was a pup from one of my friends up the road. They had 2 golden labs and 10 pups, and Whiskey was one of them. So he's now finally back in the UK with me, which is great, causing trouble. So
all we need to do now is kidnap him, and you'll never go away again. He's so attached to this dog. It's a beautiful dog. I did have a pleasure of meeting him very briefly. So Douglas is here. We can keep Douglas here because we now know where his dog is at every second of the day. It's tracked regularly. I'm really excited about IDOT, and I think Douglas has got much more to say over the coming months. I think it's really exciting for us. Lawrie, we need to get a bit near sign off now. What else have we got to talk about?
There are a few questions that have come in for both of you guys, actually. So Darren has asked, Simon, what do you do if you see a snare in the field? One that's quite good for Douglas as well, I think.
We do come across snares. In fact, Lawrie and I have come across snares quite often in our rescues. The first thing we do is obviously disable it. If it's a snapping snare with springs, we just shut it shut. We don't always take it away straight away, because if it's an illegal snare, which there are quite a lot of them, or even a fen trap, which is still legal in the UK, is only legal if it's set in certain way and to catch certain prey. So if we do see a snare like that, we obviously disable it straight away. We don't do any damage because we get into trouble, but we take a picture and we tell the police and we tell people to sort of be very aware of it, because it's always well these snares catch anything. If they're there for the wrong prey, your cat could go into it, your dog could go into it, and God forbid a small child could get its foot stuck in it as well. So disable them. ring the police, make people aware of where it is, and try to find out who set it, because snares are, they're just vile. I mean, it's not something, if something's going to kill something, if it kills it quickly, I suppose you could sort of accept it if it's an animal that you don't want, but it's often an animal that shouldn't be caught in a snare does. We had an owl caught in a fen trap a couple of years ago by its feet because they set it on the top of a pole. Fen traps are not meant for that. There's lots of illegal snares. We had gin traps a couple of years ago. Somebody bought some gin traps in China and was setting them in his garden because the fox kept taking his shoes every night. A little answer to that guy: don't leave your shoes outside on the doorstep. Take them indoors. It's not rocket science. I showed Douglas a t-shirt earlier on, but I'm not allowed to show on air because it's got bad language on it. But it is not rocket science, guys. It's just using common sense. So things like snares, yeah, we disable them, we take a picture, we make the authorities aware, so hopefully they won't be set there again. Give us another quick one, Lawrie, because we are running out of time.
Douglas, have you actually dealt with any snares during your work in Africa? I imagine you see a lot more of that out there than we probably do over here.
We didn't personally get a lot of it. The biggest thing that we really had to deal with was people spreading poison, which is also, they say, it's non-discriminatory, so it basically doesn't target anything. The wrong animal can eat it, your dog can eat it. If it gets into a water source, it can also poison a water source. But yes, wire snares are also a big problem because they last forever, and it's a very horrible, slow death for whatever's caught in it. Usually they don't kill the thing, they just injure it, and the animal will then stress itself to death or die from dehydration or starvation when it can't escape it. Yeah, so it's not a nice thing at all.
So we've had so many comments really while Douglas has been talking. One comment is, I'm actually looking at my phone now, Douglas is a natural. So that obviously means we won't be using Douglas again anymore because he takes it away from both Lawrie and I. We're going to gang up on him in a big way.
I'm happy not to be in this.
Can people hear you say that? Or are you just saying that in my ears?
Nope, they can hear me saying that.
Oh, that's good enough then. No, I think together with everything we do, together with the IDOT work and the WAF work, we've got so much more we can do. It's so easy. Everybody says to me, what's the most important thing in your life? And I say money, and people go, oh, surely it should be animals. We can do what we do, we can do more of what we do, but we need the finance to do it. So I've ended up talking about money, but the more you give us, the more we can devote our time, the more we can persuade Douglas to devote his time. And if he's such a natural on air, I think Lawrie, we've got to give him a smaller screen in future, a much smaller screen, quite dark, so it's quite shadowy.
Perfect.
No, Douglas, I'm so excited about you coming on board. It has been a lot of fun. Douglas is hoping to get a whole load of band of people around him, so he's looking for ambassadors to sort of spread his word even further. So again, if you'd like to help with IDOT, please contact Douglas, tell them where you are, what you'd like to do, and let's be very brave and let's not just make it UK based, let's make it world based, because the sooner we can get this out there, and actually, you know what will happen? We'll get it all successful, and then all the sponsors will come on, oh, I wanted a bit of that. Oh, come on board now, guys, because you're going to be the first one, and we can make IDOT really scream and make people understand the importance going forward of what we've got to do to not only protect our wildlife, but it's holistic. We've got to protect the planet as well. So I'm excited. Douglas, I think, is excited. He's a bit. He looks a bit worried to me.
Very.
He's worried working with such senile, incredibly stupid people. But no, it's going to be great, guys. Not only is Wildlife Aid going places, we've got an orphan season that's going to be the biggest ever. So again, we need help with that. Anybody's got any help they can give us. And Douglas will be out there battling away with IDOT. Won't you, Douglas?
Oh, well.
He will.
It's going to be a fight, yeah.
Cool.
So
okay.
Last couple of questions before we have to wrap up for the evening. Anthony has asked, Simon, will you be keeping Douglas in the same sort of cage you currently keep Lawrie in?
I haven't told Douglas about that cage yet, Lawrie. It's one I brought back from Vietnam in the bile industry, which they were so horrendous that we can't actually show on air. I mean, I did see some pictures the other day of Animals Asia. They were showing some of the cages these bears are kept in. It's beyond barbaric. I mean, I could. You look at these things and it drives me to tears. When I was out there doing the work with the bile badgers, Bile badgers? What's the matter with me, Lawrie?
You keep confusing your species tonight.
I know. I have that trouble on all sorts of things. It's just horrendous to see. So we want to do what we do. Whether we have to put Douglas in one of these cages and drain his bile, I do hope not, because it's the most barbaric thing you'll ever see. But I'm hoping he gets excited about it. He's fired up about it. And I hope we can keep IDOC going forward, because we need to do all these things. It needs to be holistic. Any more questions, Lawrie?
Dwerty1098 has asked, do you ever feel sad after releasing an animal since you've built a bond with it? That's one for both of you, I think.
Well, I'll start with that one while Douglas composes his answer. We try so hard not to build a bond with any animal. We don't want to get it humanised. We don't want to get it imprinted. And this is a conversation which Douglas and I have got to have later on about habitualisation and imprinting, because I'm going to change his mind on that. It doesn't have to happen. But so we don't build a bond. It's like letting one of your kids leave home. You've looked after this animal. You've spent countless hours getting it better. And then you've got to say goodbye to it, and you're terrified what's going to happen for the rest of its life. You can only do your best. You can only give these things a second chance. And if they get a second chance and they survive, fantastic. That's what our work's all about. We don't bond. We try not to bond very hard. We love the animals we deal with, but we also love them enough to let them go.
Douglas, do you have any input?
Yeah, no, that's perfect. It's always difficult not to habituate on animals you spend a lot of time around. It's great feeling when you release them. I don't think I've ever felt sad to have let one go, but I have lost some in captivity. There has been animals that while they've been with us have died, and that's a far worse feeling, because it feels like you just didn't get the chance to give them the life that you were trying to prepare them for. But every time you can get one out in the wild, it's definitely a good thing. They deserve to be there, so as much as we can to try and stop animals coming into captivity or in for rehabilitation, then the better it is.
And that seems a very beautiful message to end the stream on tonight. So thank you very much. You couldn't have planned that one better, considering.
You're all great. Douglas, thank you. Lawrie, thank you.
Thanks.
Abby, who didn't even appear for 1 second, thank you too. And
You're
Lawrie
welcome.
hasn't turned. Oh, we got the voice, but we didn't see the picture. Lawrie, let's have a little shot of you at the end so people don't forget your hair.
Pull Abby in.
No, I refuse.
Go on.
Douglas
Go
has
on.
taken
Just
over
turn
forever.
the camera. Just turn the camera to the side.
You've got to do it, Lawrie, because we're going to wait for you now to show your face and say good night to everybody.
Okay. Thank you very much for watching, guys. As always, thank you for all your comments, all your donations, everything that you have been doing for us. We greatly appreciate it. We can only do what we do thanks to your help and your support. And thank you so much. We are truly humbled by every single one of you for keeping us all doing what we do. So thank you very much from me. I'm sure thank you very much from both Simon and Douglas as well. And we will see you in 2 weeks' time.